The free agent frenzy has already begun. We'll get you caught up on all the breaking NFL news. And Tatum time is here. Are the Celtics headed towards the Larry O.B.? And Luka and Wemby had very different weekends. We'll react to all of it because Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jayson Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we are racked, stacked, and packed, and ready for a wild day of Yahoo Sports Daily. The news is going to break all day. It is going to be chaos, and we will have you caught up and ready for every single ounce of it. For anyone that doesn't know, today is the beginning of the free agent tampering window, as they like to call it. So starting at noon today, we will be able to start to see the beginnings of what could end up being the transactions. We'll see plenty to cover, but we didn't even need to wait that long, Caroline. We didn't even need to wait until Monday because I'm just sitting down Friday night trying to have myself a drink and a good Friday evening, and all of a sudden I'm welcomed to the news that Maxx Crosby, whose jersey is still hanging right up behind me, is no longer a member of my beloved Raiders, instead headed to Baltimore in exchange for 2 first-round picks. What do you think? You've had some time to live in this transaction, Caroline. How do we feel about it?
Yes. Well, first of all, I thought of you. You were the first person I thought of. I wanted to make sure that you were okay, that you were taking the news all right, that we weren't lamenting the loss of one of your favorite Raiders. I have mixed emotions about this for both the Raiders and the Ravens, but I'll start with the Raiders side of things. It felt like the writing was on the wall, right? We always say where there's smoke, there's fire. There's been a lot of smoke surrounding Maxx Crosby, whether it was Jay Glazer getting up on our show at the Super Bowl saying, yeah, he's going to get dealt. He will not be a Raider in 2026, or whether it was other reporting, whether it be from Diana Rossini or several other insiders across the NFL. It did feel like there was far too much smoke for there at least not to be some sort of rumblings about a Maxx Crosby move. And yes, the Raiders get 2 first-round picks. And yes, the Raiders are more concerned about winning over the next 3 to 5 years versus winning in 2026. The Raiders are in a rebuild. They just hired a new coach. They're going to be drafting their quarterback of the future. Those are valuable assets that they'll be able to use to build their team moving forward. But I might have the belief, I don't think it's a very hot take, Fitz, that you don't get better by trading away good players. The Raiders are not better off today than they were on Thursday afternoon. You don't lose a player who has an impact on the field, who is a figurehead, a face of the organization off the field, and feel like you're in a better place, whether as a team as currently constructed or as an organization. I have said, and I will always say, not just for the Raiders with Fernando Mendoza, but any team with any young quarterback, that your number one priority should be putting the right people and right tools in place around that quarterback to foster a healthy environment on and off the field. I don't get how trading Maxx Crosby is a good thing for Fernando Mendoza. And I know we're talking about offensive and defensive side of the ball. I understand that. But what Maxx Crosby represents for the Raiders takes some weight off of Fernando Mendoza's shoulders a little bit, where Fernando Mendoza doesn't have to be the face of the organization. Just because Fernando Mendoza is going to be the number 1 overall pick and will be the Raiders quarterback moving forward doesn't mean that he has earned the right to be the face of the organization. Maxx Crosby has. So it almost takes pressure off of a young quarterback off the field and on the field as well. The Raiders could win some of those mucky, gross 10-7 final score type of games because of the defensive presence that Maxx Crosby is. So while we felt like this was inevitable, I don't love this for the Raiders in the short-term future.
Look, so you're right in some ways, but look, I've gone back and forth on this a lot. And I was on record before he ever got traded saying that I thought it would be a win-win either way because, frankly, you win when you have Maxx Crosby on the field. That being said, I think what's happened right now is the Raiders have sent a very clear and poignant statement to everybody in the organization and everybody that's a fan of the organization like myself. I think the Raiders have told the entire world that they've finally looked at the roster and they've said, hey, we need a full, complete rebuild. What they're telling you when they let Maxx Crosby go for 2 first-rounders is that they acknowledge that even with Max, they're not going to win football games. I think what we're seeing now, and this matches some of the tone of the reporting coming out of Indianapolis and the scouting combine, where multiple reporters have made it clear that John Spytek, the GM of the Raiders, has said that it's sobering to look at where this roster is right now. I think what the Raiders have finally done is looked around and said, hey, we're not good and we're not going to be good for the next several years. This to me is a statement that they understood looking around. Even with Maxx, they weren't going to win enough games to make it worth Maxx until at least 3 years from now. I think this is that final moment where you look in the mirror and you realize, man, I got a lot of work to do. Now, that's hard for fans to hear because fans have lived through rebuild after rebuild after rebuild, so it just feels like here we go again. But that's not something that Spytech or this organization today has to worry about. The failures of the past can't be part of the burden that this current iteration of leadership feels. All they can do is go out and do what they believe is best for this team today. But I think they clearly made the statement in trading Maxx Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens that, hey, we understand it's going to be so long until we're competent because of the way we're going to do this rebuild that we won't get anything out of Maxx that's meaningful. And if we're not getting anything out of him that's meaningful, let him go try and win a Super Bowl while we try and rebuild. Again, I have to stress this, Caroline. I've seen trades for draft picks. I watched Gruden get traded for draft picks. They sucked. I watched Khalil Mack get traded for draft picks. They sucked. I've seen this over and over. It never works. But at some point, you have to keep trying this because I think what the Raiders are telling you is that they're not one Maxx Crosby away from being a playoff team. They're 18 or 19 starters away from being a playoff team. And if you're 18 or 19 starters away, that's when you realize, man, I need as many swings of the bat as I can possibly get. Doesn't feel good, but I think that's why it was the right answer for the Raiders. For the Ravens, I have no questions here. I mean, Baltimore is acquiring one of the best players, the defensive players in the league. They're acquiring a superstar. They're acquiring somebody that makes a massive difference right away. I'm not sure that this suddenly changes the whole trajectory for Baltimore, but you can't tell me that a team that feels like they're on the cusp of Super Bowl doesn't feel better about where they are with a Maxx Crosby on their defense.
Yeah, to wrap up the Raider side of things, patience, 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 patience. I cannot say that enough. And Raiders fans have been so patient and they are so excited for the future and they have every right to be. But patience, patience, patience. That is what the Raiders organization is telling you. It's for the future, not for the right now. But you bring up the Ravens side of things. You say that you have no questions. I do. I have the same question that I've had over the last 5 years. And that question is Lamar Jackson good enough to win you enough games in the postseason? Like, we know Lamar Jackson is an elite quarterback, that top tier of quarterbacks in the National Football League, the kind of quarterback that so many teams across the league are searching for. He is the answer in Baltimore. Clearly, they showed us that this past year. You don't move on from John Harbaugh if you still have big-time question marks at the quarterback position. They are investing and pushing all of their chips into the middle with Lamar Jackson. But he still has not been able to get over the hump in the postseason. Sure, Maxx Crosby makes the Ravens better. I'm not questioning that. I think Maxx Crosby makes 32 teams in the NFL better. The Ravens are a better football team and feel better equipped on paper to make a run in the postseason and to ultimately win a Super Bowl. You don't trade 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby if you're not pushing all your chips into the middle, if it is not Super Bowl or bust. It is Super Bowl or bust in Baltimore. But the same question remains. Can Lamar Jackson take down the powers that be in the AFC? Can Lamar Jackson consistently get past Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, now Bo Nix, Drake May, Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville? The AFC was crowded, and it feels even more crowded now coming off of the 2025 season. Can Lamar Jackson get you over the hump? Maxx Crosby makes you better, but there is still one big question mark and one big unproven in Baltimore, and it is still Lamar Jackson in the postseason.
Haven't we, though, just seen a Super Bowl champion that sort of mitigated the weight that their quarterback has to carry? And I'm not saying that Sam Darnold and Lamar Jackson never belong in the same conversation. I am saying that Seattle built a team with such an incredible defense and an incredible running game and also one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Like all of these things came together at once. So in my mind, look, I think there are some real unproven moments here. We have no idea who Jesse Minter is going to be as a head coach. And I want to say that loudly. Mm-hmm. We all believe that Jesse Minter looks like a really good hire. But also, if your answer is he's a great coordinator, that means he's going to be a great coach. Look no further than last year's Super Bowl at Josh McDaniels, who is consistently one of the best offensive coordinators we've ever seen in this league. Might go down as the single greatest offensive coordinator in history and is just a trash head coach, just a god-awful head coach. So if our presumption is Jesse Minter is automatically going to become a great head coach, I don't know that. In fact, I don't love a lot of the coaching decisions that have been made simply because there's a ton of unknown. Do I like an offensive coordinator for Baltimore that's basically the same age as my quarterback? I don't know how I feel about any. Like, there are questions on that side of it. But I do think that what we're seeing right now is almost that, like, you go through a breakup, right, Caroline? And the first thing you want after a breakup is whatever the opposite of what you just had was. They went from Harbaugh and sort of a minimalistic approach to some free agency, a team that's going to go out, not spend big dollars. They're going to do it the draft. They're going to develop. Now, all of a sudden, Harbaugh's out of the building. New regime comes in, and it just feels like, no, we're gonna go out there, throw money. We're gonna throw caution to the wind. We're gonna go F them picks. And I get it. I honestly get, hey, we're in the window. We want to capitalize on the window. But to your point, I do think the one question that I would have in Baltimore is, knowing all of the other intangibles, are you comfortable giving up 2 first-round picks? Because that's 2 shots at players that could help your team in a lot of ways. We felt really great about the Colts, some of us, giving up 2 first-round picks. But you were really smart at the time and said, is that the right thing to do in that moment? We won't know until we see where the Ravens go. But in a wide-open AFC East, or AFC, I should say, in a wide-open AFC, I'm a little worried about the fact that the Ravens are giving up any ability to get high-end talent to improve their roster over the next couple of years. Maxx Crosby better be a world of difference. Otherwise, this will be viewed differently.
Well, it's a Super Bowl move. It is. We feel like we are squarely in the window to win a Super Bowl, and we're going to do whatever it takes to capitalize on that. It's also not something that I feel like we see the Ravens do very often, right? The Ravens are traditionally a very strategic, a very patient organization. I think the Ravens are one of the most well-run teams in the National Football League. Firing a legendary, well-respected head coach in the offseason and trading 2 first-round picks for a pass rusher that is very much so a difference maker, but is getting up there in age, that doesn't feel like that's something traditionally that the Ravens do. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing necessarily. You know, when you find yourself in the same kind of hamster wheel, the same kind of results year for year for year, albeit for so many years, not last season, obviously, but for so many years, you know, the results that the Ravens were getting are results that anyone would be happy getting, you know, making runs in the postseason, being at the top of the NFL in the regular season. I understand that sometimes you feel like you need to do something different in order to break through, right? What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's what I said about the Steelers last year. Everything that they were doing felt very un-Steeler-like, right? You replace old and aging defensive players with old and aging defensive players, going out and signing Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year deal. All of those things went outside of what I felt like was the typical identity of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what did they get? He moved on from Mike Tomlin after this past year and got the exact same results that they've been getting for the last decade plus. I'm not saying that's going to be the case for the Ravens, but if that is the case for the Ravens, either the Ravens don't get to a Super Bowl, they don't break through. Let's just say, knock on wood for Ravens fans, the Ravens miss out on the postseason altogether, exactly like they did this past season. Like, this is the kind of move, trading 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby and moving on from John Harbaugh are the kind of moves that get people fired. And if the Ravens are okay with that, with being in a full Super Bowl or bust kind of mentality, then great. Like, I respect front offices that are willing to put their jobs and livelihoods on the line to capitalize on where they are right now. You don't win Super Bowls just by playing things safe, but that is exactly what that kind of move is. If you don't get to a Super Bowl, if you don't win a championship, if you don't have anything to show for this move, people will lose their jobs.
Just a reminder for Ravens fans in a moment of hope. Last season, Maxx Crosby, in a year where, by the way, he didn't play the entire season, had as many tackles for loss as the top 4 defensive linemen for the Ravens combined. So that just shows you how impactful he is and how impactful he will be. We have plenty more to get through because we will get breaking news throughout the course of the day on Free Agent Frenzy. We will keep you updated for every single step of the way. But in the meantime, we had a wild weekend in the NBA. So we're going to triple threat some of the biggest stories, get you caught up on what you might have missed from the association. Coming up next.
Well, one of the things, too, that keeps coming up, I keep hearing, and it kept coming up in response to my story after the hearing and during the hearing, is, hey, why doesn't he just go pro? Imagine being a college kid and making $5 million plus.
It's pretty easy. It's just money, guys. It's guaranteed money. This is probably, for most of these individuals, the last time they can make this much money playing the sport.
How can I sit here in one breath and say the sport is broken when it looks like the audience is more pleased with the sport than ever?
It's not broke. It's just we've been drinking out of a fire hose for 3 years. But it can't just be pay them, kick them off the team, next guy, next team. I worry about these kids' long-term health and what they're going to do with their lives when they're 26 and 27, when they have no roots at any university.
James Rodriguez is reportedly joining Minnesota United. The main thing as a fan of the league, I would just be excited to see him play. And then Minnesota against NYCFC, get to go see James. And what if that game is at Citi Field, bro? Queens is going to lose their mind.
It's going to go nuts. Astoria and Jackson Heights will be empty. There will be 3 Uruguayans, 4 Argentinians, and 6 Mexicans in all of Jackson Heights going, what the hell's going on? Where is everybody?
Admittedly, I'm a huge fan of Travis Hunter as a prospect. Do you have any sense of what his growth is going to be like, where he might be playing more and more, what his role is going to look like, especially on the offensive side?
The way he is, his personality, I think this injury in his rookie year is only going to just make him better. He was starting to really get going on offense, and we were starting to click. So who knows what the rep count looks like, but I know he's a special receiver when he gets the ball in his hands.
9-2. You see the big numbers. Pay no attention to the font underneath, because if you're a Lakers fan, you're trying to figure what in the hell this means. That is the Lakers record with Luka and Reeves and no LeBron. He was a late scratch from an absolute dominant win for the Lakers over the Knicks, 110-97. A little inexcusable from the Knicks as usual. So we're going to break down some of the biggest action we got from the weekend, the way we love to on the show, with triple threat. So we'll throw out a take, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do with it. We're either going to shoot, so we're taking it, yes. We're going to pass it, we want nothing to do with it. Or we're going to dribble it. We need a little bit more time to make our decision on some NBA takes. So now that we've got the construct up and we've figured out the Lakers here, shoot, pass, or dribble, Caroline Fenton, Sunday's win proves the Lakers are better without LeBron. What say you?
I'll dribble on that. I'm not going to say that's totally and completely ridiculous to say, because the numbers and the record speaks for itself. I mean, they're 9-2 without LeBron, and also that graphic was insane. Like, he's not dead. We don't need to put him in like a black and white photo. I mean, jeez. It's like that Angels graphic of Ron Washington when they put his face in the clouds. Like, everybody, take a chill pill here, everybody. Let's go to School of Graphic Design. He's not dead. The reason why I dribble on that, though, while I'm saying, look, the numbers show for themselves. Like, Luka dropped 35, Austin Reeves had 25, the Lakers looked insane. The reason why I dribble on that is because I am leaving space for the fact that could be about the Knicks far more than it is about the Lakers. We know LeBron is good for, a double-double on any given night when LeBron looks like peak LeBron at times, but we know he doesn't consistently look like that. You can't expect a 40-plus-year-old to give you a consistent effort like that night in and a night out. We know that the Lakers defense isn't better with LeBron or without LeBron. The Lakers defense is just a problem. So I just view this as more of the Knicks not being able to take advantage of that, and the Knicks not being able to stop Luka or Austin Reeves, more than it is about the Lakers are, better off without LeBron. I'm not saying that that's not a crazy idea. I'm just saying that I have trust issues with the Knicks for a reason. And so I think it is more about the Knicks than it is about the Lakers.
Oh, okay, that's fair. We'll get to the Knicks in a second. But, look, I was at a minor league hockey game last week, and I implored the refs, who I didn't think were doing a particularly great job, that they're just not good at this. I'm going to normalize trash talking in a very logical way. So if I was at a Lakers game starting a chant, I would just chant, "This ain't working," over and over again. Like, I don't really know the why, and I'm not here to tell everybody that I can fix it, because it makes no sense to me that LeBron on the court is actually a bad thing for this iteration of the Lakers. But that's exactly where we are. And at some point, I no longer care why it's not working. I simply care, that it's not working. We talked about the plus minus of those three when they're together on the court. Makes no sense. We've talked about the fact that they can't play defensively, but they believe the offense would be so good that it wouldn't matter. That hasn't been the case. Makes no sense. It doesn't make sense to me that the Lakers just had a better flow with the basketball yesterday. And yes, partially because of the Knicks. But I watched a Lakers team that just looked better prepared to move the basketball. I don't know why it doesn't work with LeBron. I just know it doesn't work with LeBron. So I'm actually going to shoot this take. Like I don't have a smart explanation for why. And maybe Tom Haberstroh will when he joins us in a little bit. But to me, I no longer care about the why. I simply care about the outcome. And the outcome tells me that when those three are together on the court, it doesn't work. And specifically, the one guy that it gets better when he's not on the court by all of the metrics is LeBron. So, dude, take some time off. Watch some golf on YouTube. Hang out. Let the Lakers get in a better situation. Maybe I'll work it out. I don't know. But I believe less in this version of the Lakers when LeBron is on the floor, even though that doesn't make any sense. At some point, my eyes tell me what my eyes tell me. So let's stick with the East because you mentioned the Knicks a couple of times. Let's get into this. Let's triple threat this take. All right. The Pistons lose by double digits to the Heat on Sunday. They've lost 4 straight for the Pistons, including a loss to the lowly, pathetic Nets. So they're 5-5 since the All-Star break. Shoot, pass, or dribble. The Pistons are the most vulnerable of the East top 4 teams to a first-round playoff exit. What say you?
I'm going to pass on that. Look, you mentioned it. The 4-game losing streak doesn't make you feel good. And that's exactly what everyone in that Pistons locker room has been talking about how this has been a big old slap in the face, how I believe Tobias Harris called it a dose of adversity. So, yeah, you're not going to feel great about that. But I also remember a time when the Pistons were at the top of the East. The Pistons were riding high. We were talking about the Pistons being a legitimate championship contender, or at least the best contender that we felt best about to get to the finals from the East. So that wasn't that long. That was like last week. It was a week and a half ago. So, this Pistons team, yes, it's been a rough stretch of 4 games, their worst losing streak of the entire season. But I still know that this team has that in them. You don't feel great about it? They're not my favorite in the East. We'll get into that. But I think at this point, it's the Knicks. It's the Knicks, the team that I feel the worst about in the East. It's the Knicks that I feel like are very clearly 4th of 4 in the powers that exist in the Eastern Conference.
Now, look, again, my common sense clapping. If I'm chanting at the Garden, it's just going to be inconsistent over and over again. Like, that's who the Knicks are this year. Look, at some point, their away record really bothers me. They're 17-15 on the road, and they just look lethargic. Even if you want to buy into, okay, they're playing the Lakers and, it's LA and all. Like, I hear all the excuses. It doesn't matter. The fact is, this is a Knicks team that disappears at times. And this is a Knicks team that struggles to find consistent secondary scoring, which I am in love with as a concept. This is also a Knicks team that sometimes shows up defensively, sometimes doesn't show up defensively. Sometimes it looks like they've figured out Mike Brown's system, and sometimes it looks like they are just running around with no idea what in the hell they are trying to do. I have seen, if we're just talking about who we trust to be the first exit of the top 4 teams in the East, I got to ask myself, what's the best and worst that we've seen? I don't think of the top 4 teams. We're talking about the Pistons, the Celtics, the Knicks, and the Cavs. And so I'm going to take the Cavs in this current iteration of them. If we're going to take those 4 teams and we're going to talk about the worst, I don't think there's any worse from any of those 4 teams than the Knicks on the road. I don't trust them at all. And the last time I checked, in a playoff series, they will have to go on the road. So knowing that the Knicks have to go on the road, I'm completely out on the Knicks being able to advance. I think the Knicks are one and done in these playoffs. So it's not the Pistons that I think at this point are the liability in the East. It is instead the Knicks. So that being said, let's take a look at the Spurs. How about this one? The Spurs put up 145 against the Rockets in regulation. They're 15-1 in their last 16. Wemby is unbeatable. Shoot, pass, or dribble. Healthy Spurs officially scarier than healthy Thunder. What say you?
I mean, let's just look at that final score for a second. This is something that would send 1980s basketball fans into an absolute tizzy. Like, this is gaudy. This is unreal. So I'm going to dribble on that. The reason why I'm not shooting on that is because I will take proof of concept over everything. And we have proof of concept, plenty of proof of concept of how terrifying this Thunder team is. when they are at full strength. So I will defer to and give the benefit of the doubt to the Oklahoma City Thunder. But something that I thought OKC had that was unmatched by anyone in the West, that the Spurs are now proving to me is not the case, is depth. Because the Spurs, I think, have some of the more impressive depth in the entire NBA, rivaled only by the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, we bring up Wemby, who's good for, a 25, 30 piece on any given night, but it's also Stephon Castle. It's also De'Aaron Fox. It's also Keldon Johnson on any given night. It's also Dylan Harper dropping 20 points off the bench. And if Wemby is a no-show in a certain game, or if Wemby's unavailable, they have plenty of guys that they can turn to that can also deliver when Wemby is on the court, when he is one of the most menacing presences in the entire league on the court. So I think it's closer than maybe a lot of people might realize because of how dominant the Thunder have been really for the span of the last 2 seasons. I will still defer to the Thunder, but it is way closer to me than I ever would have really rationalized maybe coming into this season or throughout the course of the season, Fitzy. I love this Spurs team.
This Spurs team certainly has the Thunder's number a little bit too this year, like those matchups. But it's funny to me. This is a wild stat. Points per game, 118.6. Why do I mention 118.6? Wildly to me, all 3 of the top 3 teams in the West, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Minnesota, are averaging 118.6 points per game. The exact same amount. The difference for all 3 of those teams is the defense, right? And Oklahoma City's defense is still a touch better than San Antonio's. That has meaning to me. In fact, as we talk about the fact that San Antonio's won 15 of their last 16, well, they're 9 of their last 10, right? Oklahoma City, for all of the damage that they've had done injury-wise, they've won 8 of their last 10. As much as we're talking about the heater that the Spurs are on, the Spurs are still 2.5 games behind Oklahoma City. I know we're bored with OKC, and I know that OKC hasn't really lived up to their potential this year, but hear that. They haven't lived up to their potential, and they're 50-15. They haven't been healthy, and they're still every bit the team that San Antonio is. So, look, I'm going to pass. Until somebody actually takes down OKC, I will pass on it. Let's get one more in real quick. Shoot past the dribble. Tatum's back. It was the story of the weekend. The Celtics, now the favorite to come out of the East. What say you?
Shoot. Easiest question that you will ask me all day long, Fitzy. Yes, 1,000% the Celtics should be considered the favorite to come out of the East because this Celtics team looked terrifying without Jayson Tatum. And then Jayson Tatum comes back and looked like he didn't miss any time at all. What felt like the scariest team in the East over the last week and some change just got that much scarier. So 1,000%, if I had to pick my favorite out of the East to be the Celtics, if I had to put my money on the team that's going to come out of the East, it would be the Celtics. It's the Celtics, and I don't think it's close.
Look, I really thought that they might, on the second game this weekend, dial him back a little bit. The fact that they didn't, and he still went out and was explosive, is just a statement to me. Tatum is back. The Celtics are back. I'm with you right now. If I had to bet my house on any one team from the East to go to the NBA Finals, it would be Boston. That's our opinion. Coming up next, we'll see what Tom Haberstroh thinks of our hot takes on the Celtics and of the weekend that was for Tatum and everything else in the NBA. The great Tom Haberstroh joining us next.
What is the process as a receiver winning against zone coverage? Is it more settling down? Is it finding holes? Walk us through the process there.
So like the first thing that you want to look at is those safeties, right? So then you just look at your triangle. So I go safeties to nickel backer or nickel or backer and then out to that corner, is it going to be cover 2? Are they showing 3 right now because they're going to roll into 2? Are those safeties low? Just seeing those subtleties are really what makes you a really good zone player.
You don't want to get ahead of yourself when you think that he's going to come and be a game changer. He's more of a managerial type that can operate at a high level. I've made the comparison to Jared Goff in terms of how he'll play the game within the right system. The best thing that has happened to Fernando Mendoza is Clint Kubiak bringing his system to the Las Vegas Raiders. And when surrounded by the right talent, he can have a lot of success.
We got the announcement that Floyd Mayweather will be taking on Manny Pacquiao in a rematch. People will watch, people will tune in, and I'm curious to see how it looks. Like, I think they're going to be around the same skill level if they both come in healthy. And I really think it is significant that Floyd Mayweather is putting the L on the line.
100%. How do you make the competitive balance the most even? I think Manny and Floyd at this stages in their life, that makes it fair and exciting. So I'm in on Mayweather Pacquiao too.
A little Saban for us because everybody loves Saban. So, give us your thoughts.
I knew that you were going to bring me in here and have me do Nick Saban for him.
Have you done Saban for Saban?
No, but I've met him.
Okay.
And he didn't know that it was me. And he shook my hand, and I said, Coach, Joey Molinaro, so good to finally meet you, as if he would know who I was. And he just looked at me and goes, yeah, well, all right. Walked away.
Jayson Tatum, I missed you, girl. We missed you, Jayson Tatum, as he gets out on the court. Loving the game of basketball. Really incredible for somebody that's been so honest about how painful and difficult it has been to have to rehab through an Achilles injury. To see the joy that he felt back on the court was palpable. It lifted up the Celtics. It lifted up NBA fans, and it has us in our feels. We're going to bring in Tom Haberstroh now. Tom, you heard us as we were going to break. Caroline and I both just anointed the Celtics. We put them in the NBA Finals. Congratulations. The rest of the East can take the rest of the season off. What did you, after seeing what you saw this weekend, how do you feel about the Celtics' title chances?
Yeah, I just put them on the top tier of my title tiers, a 5-star tier, replacing Detroit. I felt like the Boston Celtics with Jayson Tatum over the weekend showed me everything I need to know to put them in that top tier. I would have them as the favorites coming out of the East. They just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, the rival team, now with James Harden, and beat them pretty handily. And while Jayson Tatum isn't peak Jayson Tatum right now, I don't think he needs to be. The East race is wide open, and the Celtics have been playing a brand of basketball, very offensively skewed and just ripping defenses apart all season long. But what they've missed is a little bit of size on the wing, two-way player like Jayson Tatum, who can be an elite rebounder, a shooter, an attacker, someone who has so much gravity out on the perimeter along with Jaylen Brown. And they've got that guy. Now, he's not necessarily going to be a lock for 25 a night. I don't think they need that. I think Jayson Tatum, the one play that stuck out to me, and I wrote about it for TomTheFinder.com, is the three-pointer that he hit on Friday against the Dallas Mavericks, the first jumper that he hit. It was like this sidestep in the left corner that he pushed off his right heel, the one that he rehabbed, in a way that is the same mechanism, guys, that we saw him tear his Achilles. Same with Damian Lillard, same with Tyrese Halliburton, the same push-off, the false step push-off that has an increased risk of an Achilles tear because of all that force on that right heel. He used that same push-off for that bucket in the left corner, his first made jumper, a corner three. And right here, you can see it. Push off that right heel, and then he hits the three. This is one of the things I was looking for. Watching Jayson Tatum, not just how well he was getting downhill and rising above the rim and his verticality. I think in today's NBA, the thing I'm most interested in is his footwork on the perimeter, because that is really the biggest game changer of why I think we're seeing more of these Achilles tears is the step back three, is the false step, is the hard closeouts, the attacking off the dribble and side steps and step backs. And that, to me, the whole bag around the rim, we hear about that, your layup package. What I'm most interested in with him is his ability to create space on the perimeter with that Achilles tear. We heard it from Derrick Rose and so many players that when you have a knee injury or an ankle injury, one of the hardest things is the mental hurdle of rising up and landing without looking down to make sure you're not falling on someone else's or landing on someone else's foot. And I think similarly with Jayson Tatum, the fact that he's able to push off that right heel and still get to his spots, the shots will start to fall with more regularity. And I think Jayson Tatum, the way he played over the last two games against a lowly Mavericks team and then one of the best teams in the NBA in the Cleveland Cavaliers, I thought it was as good of a return as you could hope for if you're a Celtics fan. And a big reason why I've got them in that top tier along with OKC, San Antonio, and I got Cleveland up there too, even without Jared Allen in that Sunday matchup against the Celtics. I think the Cavs and the Celtics are in that top tier in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, the Celtics look absolutely terrifying, even without Jayson Tatum, and especially with Jayson Tatum. And it may be so easy to say after 2 games back, 35 combined points, 15 combined rebounds, 9 combined assists in those 2 games, that, okay, Jayson Tatum is back, everything's fine, everything is all happy in Celtic land. Are you willing to go there after a 2-game sample size, 10 months removed from Achilles tear? Or do you still have some hesitation there?
Yeah, I did a lot of research on this topic, Caroline, and I wrote about it for Yahoo Sports last week. So go dive into that article about the return to play for Achilles tears and what 10 months of Jayson Tatum's return means in the larger scope of this injury. And it is faster than normal, quicker than normal to get back onto the floor in 10 months. Typically these days, we're seeing around 10 months, 11 months. And in the case of DeJounte Murray, who plays for the Pelicans now, former All-Star, he took 13 months to come back from his Achilles tear. But one thing I should note here is this is not a linear process. A lot of times players come back early and see it as a win, only to see you a little saddled in your return to play and more increased risk for injury. I remind people, Kobe Bryant, he came back in 8 months, just under 8 months, and it was this heroic thing, as you see on this chart. Jayson Tatum's about 10 of the last 20 years. There are about 10 or so injury timelines that have been a little bit faster than Jayson Tatum, but it wasn't all roses after they came back. Kobe Bryant came back in 8 months, and 6 games later, he suffered a major knee injury in the same leg, and he just wasn't the same, even though he came back so early. I think we should be more longer-term view about the timetables. Yes, it was faster than normal. Yes, it's great to see him back in such short order. Usually we see, Kevin Durant, he had 18 months between his injury and coming back for his first NBA game. And of course, there was the COVID delayed restart and the bubble. He did not go to the bubble, and so it was a prolonged return. But I'll remind people, of the last 20 years, he's the only All-NBA player that got back to All-NBA status after the Achilles tear, and he took a full entire season before he came back. And this is a different story with Jayson Tatum, right? He wanted to come back in time for the playoffs. And my hope is that he continues to see that good progression and that he gets more minutes and he continues to use that footwork package on the perimeter without having any sort of hitches or hurdles on his return. So we're not out of the woods yet with Jayson Tatum, as Kobe Bryant, Elton Brand have shown us. Even though they come back in 8 months or quicker than normal, it's still a marathon, not a sprint. And for Jayson Tatum and the Boston Celtics, they understand the stakes here. They're trying to win another championship. So I don't think he'll be playing on second night of back-to-backs. He's under 30 minutes right now in his 2 games of return. But so far, so good. And the Boston Celtics have to be really happy. But as everyone knows with Achilles tears, it's a marathon, not a sprint here.
Yeah, and we're all going to be holding our breath constantly, at least through the playoffs. It's just the inevitability of it. So let's talk about the basketball side, because I heard plenty of people say, well, how are they going to gel together like they didn't play together for years? But when you see what they've done in the limited scope that they have and now what's ahead of them, how do they have to change things to integrate Tatum?
Well, what's interesting is if you look at the 20 minutes that Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum have shared on the floor together, the usage rate, meaning how often a player tries to score a percentage of his team's possessions, Jayson Tatum in the 20 minutes that he's shared with Jaylen Brown, he actually has a slightly higher usage rate than Jaylen Brown. And that's more or less what it was like last year. And so it does seem like when they're on the floor together in that time, Jayson Tatum has been slightly more aggressive than Jaylen Brown on the other side. And of course, Jaylen Brown has been fantastic this season, but there isn't this kind of, I'm going to take a back seat to Jaylen Brown. It wasn't like that. Jayson Tatum in the 2 games has 12 field goal attempts in the shared minutes with Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown has 9 field goal attempts. And so it does seem like the integration, it didn't need a ramp up. They've already established the same sort of pecking order where they're sharing the spotlight like it was last season and prior years when they won a championship together. So I was curious to see, you guys, Jayson Tatum seemed to come out firing, and he seemed to, set up his teammates for sure. But it wasn't a case where he's easing his way into this. Minutes were a little lower than typically we see with Jayson Tatum. He's not playing 35 minutes right now. But when he's on the floor with Jaylen Brown, Jaylen Brown's getting shots up. Derek White is getting shots up. And that is really interesting to me. They didn't have a training camp together. They didn't have a G League rehab for Jayson Tatum to get back up to speed. He seems like he's regular workload when he's playing with Jaylen Brown. And there will be some bumps in the road, no doubt. The NBA, this is how it works. There's going to be a down game where Jaylen Brown doesn't get the ball in the last couple minutes of the game, and we're going to ramp up the hype machine in this story. Of course, we're going to see that. But so far, so good when it comes to Jayson Tatum and the way that he's integrating with the Boston Celtics offense.
So far, so really good. You'll take that any day of the week if you're a Boston Celtics fan. I do want to transition into some other news in the league, though. Pablo Torre did release more evidence relating to the potential cap circumvention situation with the Los Angeles Clippers and Kawhi Leonard. What's the latest that you've heard on that?
Well, Pablo delivered quite the bombshell on Friday afternoon at the MIT Sports Analytics Conference, where he actually provided a copy of the whistleblower complaint to the SEC that named the Clippers and had allegations regarding cap circumvention in the whistleblower account to the federal government. Remember, this is not a letter to the NBA. This is to a federal entity, the SEC, where the whistleblower was alleging that the package, the payment to Kawhi Leonard through the Aspiration LLC was a cap circumvention scheme. And so what Steve Ballmer and Lawrence Frank and the organization knew about that, there's a lot of questions here. And Pablo Torre, in his reporting, when he talked to those who were interviewed by Wachtell Lipton, the NBA's commissioned law firm that is investigating the allegations, the report is from not only Pablo Torre, but also The Athletic, is they weren't even asked about Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer never even came up. And the one thing that's interesting in this reporting from Pablo Torre, and something I hadn't really considered, is that you know who's footing the bill for this investigation? It's Steve Ballmer himself. Steve Ballmer, as part of the bylaws of the NBA, is that when there are league investigations into an ownership or an organization, the owner is going to foot the bill, which raises quite the conflict of interest, or the appearance of impropriety, is if the owner, the richest owner in sports and one of the richest people in the NBA, in the world, forget the NBA, is footing the bill and paying for an investigation, is it all that independent? And so we will see how Adam Silver adjudicates this matter. But one of the things I recommend people watching this video, because what Pablo Torre did is underneath that seat for Adam Silver, underneath that seat that he was sitting on earlier at the MIT Sloan Analytics Conference, Pablo Torre had and his team had taped the whistleblower complaint copy underneath the chair of Adam Silver, as if to say, hey, if you need the smoking gun, it's right there for you. And so it was an incredible delivery of the news, an investigation. I've never seen an investigation like this before, the way that he's delivering this information and fact-checking it and providing all of the sourcing necessary to raise some of these concerns and these allegations. If Adam Silver watched that delivery, that report from Pablo Torre, I don't know how you don't drop the hammer on Steve Ballmer, but it is a question how serious those allegations are being considered, considering that allegedly Steve Ballmer was not a topic of conversation in the investigation interviews with Aspiration employees. So that's something to watch, is whether Adam Silver, this news that Pablo Torre raised, how much did he know about it? What the investigators knew about it? And if this complaint came in 2023, when did the Clippers know about this? And that informs so much about what Adam Silver should do in this case. I would expect that the heat just got turned up big time when it comes to the NBA league office lowering down the hammer on Steve Ballmer and the Clippers.
It's going to be interesting, as we've talked about before, Tom, because I agree all of this reporting has been incredible. It just feels like the NBA relies on something taking our attention away the next day, and nothing ever happens. I would genuinely be interested to see what it takes, because every time it's been like, well, it's not thorough enough, Pablo's like, all right, I'll just get you more information then. We'll just keep going. Like, he's not stopping.
Yeah, he's not stopping. But I would say the story is not stopping. I would say Pablo is just reporting stuff that other entities have not reported yet, and he's uncovering more details. So we're about to, see if there's a 10-part in this investigation. But what we saw on Friday was the first time that the whistleblower complaint dated back in 2023 that alleges cap circumvention among all sorts of illegal practices by this company. The cap circumvention, Kawhi Leonard's name in this whistleblower complaint as the C item in the complaint. Like, it wasn't even a headline, but for the NBA, this very much is a headline move. And if you're another owner or the other owners in this case, you're watching how Adam Silver handles this with a very keen eye, because what it would tell you if he does not drop the hammer and really punish Steve Ballmer and the Clippers is go ahead, circumvent all you want. That would be the message if all this evidence is presented and there really isn't much of a punishment. I think it opens the floodgates for teams to use sham companies or sham no-show endorsement deals in order to get their free agents or their players paid under the table. And certainly that is not a precedent that the NBA wants to set, but also antagonizing the richest owner in pro sports is also a precedent that maybe not every commissioner wants to set either.
It's great stuff from Pablo and great stuff from you breaking it down continually. Be sure to check out The Big Number. Follow him on social media at Tom Haberstroh. And then, of course, find the title tiers at tomthefinder.com. Tom, always appreciate your expertise, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
You got it, guys.
Thanks, Tom. Great stuff from Tom. All right, coming up next, from great stuff from Tom to great stuff from Texas. A dominant performance, taking home the SEC title. What's it mean? We'll tell you next.
Criticism like that from a coach. In the moment, how are you feeling when that's happening and the film's on screen?
Yeah, man, I think it's you listen more to the message and not the tone of the message. I mean, I think it's actually better to get called out than to not, because it shows not only like you're not worried about getting your feelings hurt. Like, they're not worried about hurting my feelings. And that's something I love about our coach. Like, he's not really worried about hurting your feelings. He's going to tell you, shoot it to you straight. And for me, like, I've always thrived under coaches that do that.
We are ranking the biggest robberies in MLS history. The players who looked at their team owners and said, thanks for the cash, and gave absolutely nothing in return. If your team is on this list, we are very, very sorry. Danielson, FC Dallas. His contract was for $879,000.
If you're watching this, look at his photo. He don't even look interested to be there in the photo.
With 10 appearances, he effectively got nearly $100,000 per game.
I'm sitting there watching Unreal, and they're talking about you in WWE at the Royal Rumble, just being thrown into the ring. You ever getting back in the ring for one of those opportunities again after that injury?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we got WrestleMania coming up, so you maybe see me in there, you maybe not. I'm just not trying to get beat up, but we'll see. We'll see. Like, I got beat up too much times. My body can't take that anymore.
Little teaser from the one and only Nate Diaz, unfinished business. And then he expanded on that on Twitter and said, I'll see you soon. I'm coming.
What about Dustin? Dustin versus Nate. Big fight. That could be a co-main or a main for a big fight card.
One that we always wanted to see.
One that Dustin has said, that'll get me out of retirement. The UFC could use him more than ever. They need stars now.
The NCAA tournament is right around the corner, which means it is time for conference tournaments, and Texas made a statement. The Texas women win their first SEC tournament championship in program history, the number 4 team in all the country, and certainly they got to feel good about the way this one went down, as conference championship week gave us all the drama. But Texas in this process, Caroline, comes out and makes a statement. They beat third-ranked South Carolina. It's not just that they beat them. They shellacked them. They beat them good, 78-61. Is this? This really felt like a statement to me, a pay attention to us statement, because I think sometimes we just presume South Carolina is just going to be anointed, and Texas went out there, Carolina, and said, no, not so fast.
You could tell that Texas took this one personally. And Vic Schaefer even said it. He was like, look, this win meant a lot to us. It was a statement type of game. It was a prove it type of game. Not only with a championship on the line, a ring on the line, the opportunity to call themselves SEC champions on the line, but also playing that team in South Carolina, a team that they are very familiar with, a team that they've seen several times throughout the regular season, the team that beat them in the SEC championship last season. So you could tell it meant more to them. You could tell that they were fueled by a lot more than just being able to call themselves SEC champions rather. And that was proven by the fact that they outscored South Carolina 27-12 in the first quarter. They dropped 27 points on South Carolina in the first quarter alone. And we are talking about one of the best defensive teams in all of women's college basketball in South Carolina. You don't get out to that kind of lead against that team that plays so soundly, that plays such stifling defense. And every time it felt like South Carolina wanted to do something, started to get a little bit of a run going, started to find at least a little bit of momentum and chemistry, Texas just stifled it immediately right then and there. So I thought it was a really impressive statement game from Texas against a team that feels very comfortable in Greenville. Let's not forget, Greenville is an hour and some change away from Columbia, South Carolina. Anytime South Carolina plays in Greenville, especially in the SEC championship game, it's like a home game. You can tell that it's essentially South Carolina or University of South Carolina 2.0. So for Texas to be able to overcome that level of pressure, that environment, I think was so impressive, especially in a conference that is the deepest and most dominant conference in all of women's college basketball. And we've got 4 to 5 legitimate national championship contenders in the SEC. Texas is one of them. South Carolina is one of them. We saw both of them on full display on Sunday. I think LSU is one of them. I think that that Vanderbilt is one of them. And I'll throw Oklahoma into the mix as well. We had teams that are going to make some national noise in the tournament playing on day one in the SEC tournament. I think Kentucky is a team that could absolutely surprise some people in the NCAA tournament. So it was a blast of a tournament and a really impressive statement from Vic Schaefer and company.
And look, it's not a reason that I'm going to sit here and eliminate South Carolina from anything. Dawn Staley reminded everyone the last time they lost in the SEC title game, they won the Natty, right? And look, to your point, they got punched in the mouth early in this game. And that's whether that's an energy, whether that's an understanding of, hey, this is what we have to do. So often in the tournament, particularly when we get to the March Madness portion of this, I think it's about who's matching whose level of give a damn early from the outset, like who matches whose first punch. And certainly South Carolina didn't have a match for Texas's first punch. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think that's the sort of wake-up call that Dawn Staley uses to motivate this team. And I'm certainly not worried about where the future of South Carolina is this season. They'll be just fine. They got their asses kicked, but they'll be just fine. That being said, which women's conference title game winner this weekend impressed you the most headed into some of the big dance that we're about to get?
Well, I do think it was Texas, the statement that they made, but I could wax poetic about Texas all day long. And to your point, South Carolina is still a national championship contender. If there's anyone that I trust to get her team refocused after a loss, it's absolutely Dawn Staley. But I'm going to go to the Big 12 tournament because I think the Big 12 has been one of the most bizarre, drunk conferences in women's college basketball all season long. It has been a weird and funky and crazy season, but TCU really emerged themselves as the best of the bunch. They earned the right to be the number 1 overall seed in the Big 12 tournament. West Virginia lost to TCU twice in the regular season, and both of them, frankly, were in pretty heartbreaking fashion. One of those losses came in the form of a 1-point loss, but West Virginia also felt like they were fueled, and they took that one personally. They can now call themselves Big 12 tournament champions after taking down TCU 62-53 in the Big 12 tournament championship. I think the most impressive part about that, though, wasn't just Jordan Harrison, who you see right there. She was the tournament MVP. She had 21 points in the championship game, 6 rebounds, hit all 10 of her free throws. But it was also West Virginia holding TCU to 33% shooting from the field. And that's a really good shooting team, especially Olivia Miles, who's going to get hers always, and she did in the tournament championship. Although held less than her season average, she was still able to hit 4 threes in that game. But I think West Virginia's defense being able to hold TCU to just 33% from the field, not to mention just 26% from 3, I thought was wildly impressive. I don't view anyone out of the Big 12, whether it's TCU or West Virginia, I don't view them as legitimate championship contenders over a Texas or a UConn or a South Carolina. But what I do think that TCU and West Virginia are both capable of is slaying a giant and making things really interesting and fascinating for the NCAA tournament. Now, I would love to see if West Virginia can be a host site in the NCAA tournament.
You mentioned UConn. I will just quickly mention, while the women have to play tonight for the Big East Tournament Championship against Villanova, they won their first round matchup on Saturday against Georgia by 45, and they won their second round matchup yesterday against Creighton by 49. So I'm just, UConn's out here just doing damage to everybody. From the women's side to the men's side on UConn, it's a weekend, which means we've got Hurley back in the news. Look, I get it. It's just part of Dan Hurley's personality, but in the Big East lost to Marquette in a game that they were down by 2. He didn't like a non-call near the end of the game. He got fired up about it. He says he didn't bump the ref. The ref says he did bump the ref. He's been fined $25,000 for unsportsmanlike conduct. He was ejected with about a second to go in the game. The game was lost after the no call, but ejected in this. And afterwards basically said, I'm not going to get suspended. I've had this happen before. It's going to be just fine. Handled it the flippant way that we would expect Hurley to handle it. At some point, I wonder, Caroline, what the officials, what the NCAA, what the Big East is going to have to do to send a message to a coach that just constantly parades officials at a level that's different than other coaches.
You say Dan Hurley says he didn't. The ref said he did. I believe the ref because Dan Hurley has a long history of this kind of behavior. That's pretty clear and obvious evidence that Dan Hurley is bumping the ref. I don't know if it comes in the form of a suspension. I don't think UConn will do any sort of suspension for Dan Hurley. If they did, it would come in the form of a Big East suspension or an NCAA suspension. I'm tired of this, Fitz. I'm over it. I'm so over all of this. And I wonder where UConn fans stand on this as well. Because when you win back-to-back championships, you can do pretty much whatever the heck you want. And when you win back-to-back championships, your behavior, however obnoxious it might be, it becomes funny. It becomes that's our guy. You don't like him, but we do. He's, anybody outside of UConn or outside of the state of Connecticut's going to hate Dan Hurley, but we love it because that's our guy. I wonder at what point, if it hasn't already, just gotten old for UConn fans. Like it's annoying. Grow up. You're setting a bad example. At this point, I feel like Dan Hurley is in the news far more for his antics than for what they do on a basketball court. And if I'm a UConn fan, I'm sick of that being the story.
Look, I live right down the road from this, and I can tell you right now, no, it's galvanizing. The fan base falls right in line behind Hurley. They feel like this is a genuine thing where UConn fans, at least in my Menchie's, my experience, the grocery store down the road, they feel like they get an unfair rap, that the whole world's trying to make them into villains, that Hurley is just hated because he ain't us, and that everybody's just jealous of the success that he has. And so we treat him differently when all he is a perfect, tough coach. That is how UConn fans seem to see it. That's how I am greeted with it every single time there's a UConn game on, which is everywhere. This is an area cares deeply about their basketball team. I just wonder at what point somebody has to try and put coach in line. Unfortunately, I don't think it'll happen. I just think at his core, Dan Hurley consistently acts like a jerk. That's just who he is. Who we are, well, we love to have a little bit of fun here. So a reminder, we're just 6 days away from Selection Sunday. You can sign up right now for Yahoo Fantasy Bracket Mayhem. You can win $50,000. You can do a men's and women's bracket. So this is amazing. Go to yahoofantasy.com/bracket mayhem. That's yahoofantasy.com YouTube.com/bracket mayhem. That's how you join in on the mayhem this March. I can promise you, Caroline and I will cover every ounce of this tournament on this show. We'll also be doing extra shows for Yahoo, each of us working around the men's and women's tournament. So plenty of coverage to come on Yahoo Sports Daily. We will have your brackets covered like nobody else can. Coming up next, free agency is right here. The question is, are the top free agents actually worth it? We'll answer that question for you next.
Well, one of the things, too, that keeps coming up, I keep hearing, and it kept coming up in response to my story after the hearing and during the hearing, is, hey, why doesn't he just go pro? Imagine being a college kid and making $5 million plus.
It's pretty easy. It's just money, guys. It's guaranteed money. This is probably, for most of these individuals, the last time they can make this much money playing the sport.
How can I sit here in one breath and say the sport is broken when it looks like the audience is more pleased with the sport than ever?
It's not broke. It's just we've been drinking out of a fire hose for 3 years. But it can't just be pay them, kick them off the team, next guy, next team. I worry about these kids' long-term health and what they're going to do with their lives when they're 26 and 27, when they have no roots at any university.
James Rodriguez is reportedly joining Minnesota United. The main thing, as a fan of the league, I would just be excited to see him play. And then Minnesota against NYCFC, get to go see James. And what if that game is at Citi Field, bro? Queens is going to lose their mind.
It's going to go nuts. Astoria and Jackson Heights will be empty. There will be 3 Uruguayans, 4 Argentinians, and 6 Mexicans, and all of Jackson Heights going, what the hell's going on? Where is everybody?
Admittedly, I'm a huge fan of Travis Hunter as a prospect. Do you have any sense of what his growth is going to be like, where he might be playing more and more, what his role is going to look like, especially on the offensive side?
The way he is, his personality, I think this injury in his rookie year is only going to just make him better. He was starting to really get going on offense, and we were starting to click. So who knows what the rep count looks like, but I know he's a special receiver when he gets the ball in his hands.
A subtle but significant change when the NFL's free agent negotiation window opens today. For the first time, clubs may conduct one video or phone call of a maximum of 1 hour with up to 5 free agents rather than communicating strictly through their agents as in past years. That was a change that was suggested by the Steelers. It was put into rule this year quietly. And Caroline, it's an important rule because today starts legal tampering is what they call it. It used to be the only way you could sign was an agent could call, a team could call your agent, and then that window started Wednesday at noon, I think it is. But what eventually happened is they realized that massively complex deals were being negotiated in 30 seconds, which is impossible. So they start this negotiating window. We have seen a couple of times where people have agreed to deals and changed their mind because they can agree to something today, but they cannot sign it until Wednesday. But this is a significant change. Now, players can actually talk to coaches on a Zoom or a phone call for up to an hour before they make any decisions. It's wild to me to think that the NFL thought for generations that somebody should make a decision without talking to the coach or GM directly, but that's the world we've been in. So today the news should start to trickle out any minute. We've had some throughout the course of the day. Who's going to sign where? I will caution, though, Caroline, because of these calls, it could take a few hours before we get some of that information.
It could. But look, let's not act like coaches and players haven't already been talking for years and years and years. I will never forget. It was so crazy how both Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford were vacationing together at the same resort in Cabo, and they just happened to reach a deal or a trade for Matthew Stafford to get sent to the Rams. Isn't that a crazy little coincidence, Fitz? Isn't that just funny how the universe works? No, of course players have been going through back channels, talking to coaches. The NFL knows that. The NFL acknowledges that. It's the same thing if you're a parent and you know your kid is doing something. Instead of saying, no, don't do that thing. It's like, okay, let's just make sure that we can inform you and give you the best information to make the right and safe decisions and safe choices. The NFL can't move forward with that kind of forbidden fruit kind of kind of construct for free agency when it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for a player to be making a decision about his future and not talking to the person that is going to be a really big part of success or not having success about said future. So I think this is the right thing. And if that comes at the cost of the speed of information for us as fans and people who cover the league, then so be it. This is the right move to make.
Now, I years ago, I interviewed Calais Campbell right after he signed. I think it was with Jacksonville at the time, and I asked him, I was like, what is it about the Jags that you loved? And he was like, yeah, the money. And I said, well, what did you look at with the rest of the division? He's like, didn't even have time, dude. Like, they made an offer.
Yeah.
It was the most money. We took the offer. So I like players being able to make a little bit more detailed decisions. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make some detailed decisions. Players might be going games at this blind anymore, but we will. We're going to do some blind resumes, all right, comparing two free agents, and we'll decide from the blind resume which of these free agents we would prefer to sign. Let's start, all right, with the edge rushers. We're going to pull up two blind resumes. One is 31 and one is 26, all right? So this is last year's stats played in 7 versus 17. 4 sacks in 7 games versus 5 and 17. Tackles for loss, 3 versus 7. Quarterback hits pretty even there, even though a lot less games. Older player, which one would you rather have, Caroline?
I mean, there's no question about this, right? It's the younger player that was more available, that had more production, like significantly more production. It's not even close at all in the slightest. Of course, it's the younger player.
Yeah, I think the older player is Trey Hendrickson. So 31 years old feels like Trey Hendrickson. So I think that's where we're going to go with. I got that one. Oh, and Jalen Phillips. Okay, so you have Jalen Phillips at 26. Age is a huge part of this. Like, and I can't say this loud enough, right? When you're 26, that's a much different process in team building than when you're 31. If you're acquiring Trey Hendrickson right now to be your edge rusher, to be your sack specialist, to me, you're saying, hey, we understand we're either winning the Super Bowl this year or next year. It is that simple, because like he ain't going to be worth anything by the time he's 34, 35 in all likelihood, versus Jalen, where you could turn around and say, hey, we think we're in a window. We have 3 or 4 years to win. So I think it depends on your team. I mean, the numbers there for Trey, limited number of games, high production, but I don't like the age number next to him at all.
And I do think it's fascinating and perhaps telling that I always thought it would make more sense that Trey Hendrickson would get signed before Maxx Crosby got traded. And that's because you're going to have to pay both of them, right? Free agent Trey Hendrickson versus Maxx Crosby, who's already under contract. But the difference is Trey Hendrickson, albeit 3 years older, Maxx Crosby's 28. He'll be going to his 29-year-old season. Maxx Crosby, it's going to take the farm, which we now have learned in the form of 2 first-round picks, to trade for Maxx Crosby versus just signing Trey Hendrickson off the street. Felt very obvious to me that Trey Hendrickson would be the easier one to sign rather than trade Maxx Crosby. I do think it could be very telling about why that wasn't the case. Why the Ravens were willing to mortgage their short-term future to trade for Maxx Crosby versus just signing Trey Hendrickson off the street when they are very clearly in a win right now mode. It is the next 1 to 2 years for the Baltimore Ravens. So kind of red flag question mark there.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to Jory Epstein, our great NFL reporter, who about a year ago said, hey, the league does not view Trey Hendrickson the way that we think the league views Trey Hendrickson. And so far, that has seemed to be the case. As she pointed out, that many people around the league think he's kind of a one-trick pony that does one thing really well, but is a liability in other aspects of football. And they're not comfortable paying somebody his age that sort of money. She said that a year ago. So far, it looks like that's been the case. Let's take a look at another one. Now we'll go wide receiver. All right, wide receiver, a big position here. You can have the 27-year-old that played in all 18 games with 59 catches, 687, or the 32-year-old that only played in 8 games but put up 30 catches. 32 is a little low, but 59 catches in 18 games. That's okay production, Caroline. That's not epic money production to me.
And 687 yards, you'll take that. It's not a number 1 receiver. So again, of course, you're going to take the younger player who was more available, who had more production, but neither of these guys necessarily are, in my opinion, going to be total and complete franchise changers and franchise savers. The 32-year-old is... Well, the 27-year-old is probably A.J. Brown. Oh.
Yeah, no, the 32-year-old is Mike Evans. I thought Mike Evans was the right way to go there. Rashid Shaheed's the 27-year-old. That's That's interesting to me.
It's not free agent. Not free agent. Obviously, AJ Brown trade rumors swirling around, but not a free agent. That is fascinating to me. Looking at the resume, obviously, clearly you're going with the younger player with more production. But I think Mike Evans would make any team better. That's just how I feel about Mike Evans. And of course, the injuries don't make you feel great, and he's an aging player. But there are certain things that just don't show up in numbers or a box score. And that's not an anti-Rashid Shaheed kind of sentiment. But Rashid Shaheed is not going to be your number one. Rashid Shaheed's going to be definitely a difference maker on special teams. He's definitely going to be a guy that is going to take attention away from defenses. I said I thought Rashid Shaheed was the sneaky best move made at the NFL trade deadline. I feel that same way today. Obviously, the Seahawks won a Super Bowl. They're going to agree. But what Mike Evans can bring you outside of the box score, his physicality, his size, the fact that his best ability is the way that he can just catch anything. He's got the stickiest of hands. That doesn't go away with age, whereas speed does. Whereas maybe a guy like Mike Evans ages better than a guy like Rashid Shaheed, who one of his greatest superpowers is his speed, is his breakaway ability. So yeah, if you're just looking at the numbers, hands down, by far, the 27-year-old with more production is going to be the guy that you would sign over the older guy who wasn't as available. But it's the production and what he offers you away from the numbers that I think makes Mike Evans such an attractive potential free agent signing.
100%. By the way, Shaheed, you'll see, played in 18 games because of the trade. He didn't get a bye last year, so he had to do extra work. That's why he got 18 games versus 8 for Mike Evans. But I'm with you. The numbers are like Rashid Shaheed is a great piece that opens up a lot in your offense. Mike Evans is a great wide receiver. And if I could just bring in a Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver, that makes my room better. I have no questions to ask about system. I have no questions to ask about anything. I want Mike Evans in that situation. What about running back? We'll go blind resume on the running back position, which, a little bit of would you rather here with the free agency period open. We've got a 25-year-old that played in 17 games versus a 27-year-old. The touches favor the 27-year-old. The yardage barely favors the 27-year-old. The touchdowns favor the 27-year-old. I think the 25-year-old is Kenneth Walker III. I think that's where we are on KW3. Yeah, and so that's my guess here. Oh, look at that! Look at that! And then
look at you.
Was really, ETN was unlocked this year. Liam Cohen found a way to unlock ETN, but that for me is a little bit of an issue, right? Like the other coaches couldn't unlock it, so all of a sudden ETN gets unlocked. Is that because Liam Cohen was brilliant, or because things broke right, or is that like I love Kenneth Walker? I don't like Kenneth Walker. I love Kenneth Walker. My man crush on Kenneth Walker is real. If I could have any wide receiver out of this free agency period or this year's draft, I would take Kenneth Walker. That's how much I like Kenneth Walker.
And I don't think that it hurts that he was just the Super Bowl MVP. Like that's gonna bump the price up a little bit. I don't think that we're giving enough respect to what that position can offer a team and a quarterback, because we talked so much about how Trevor Lawrence just found this next level in the last 5 to 6 games of the season. Like we were talking about this in December, how Trevor Lawrence was playing at an MVP caliber level in the last several handful games of the season. I don't think that's just about Trevor Lawrence, although I'll give plenty of credit where credit is due to Trevor Lawrence and to Liam Cohen for things just clicking. I think it's also having a reliable running back to take some of that pressure and focus away. So if you are a GM, a coach of a team that doesn't have one of these elite quarterbacks, a Burrow, a Mahomes, an Allen, a Jackson, so on and so forth. If you have one of these quarterbacks that is I would say the larger population of quarterbacks in the NFL, guys that are really good, guys that are reliable, guys that are trustworthy, the guys that aren't elite and don't elevate their team on every given down, on every single game, having a reliable go-to running back can maybe elevate that quarterback to that point. Like we talked about this earlier. The Seahawks just proved to all of us and to the league that you don't need an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl. You just have to put the right pieces around him. A reliable go-to, nearly every down back, bell cow back can be that type of thing that makes up for not having an elite quarterback. So I think any of these two guys is the perfect signing for any of those teams that don't have an elite quarterback.
Speaking of quarterbacks, some of the breaking news that we've gotten over the course of the day, Tua Tagovailoa has been officially released by the Miami Dolphins. So he is gone at this point, and it is a historic dead cap hit. So an NFL record $99 million in dead money will be split over 2 years, which means they've designated him a post-June 1st cut. So as a result of doing that, they'll owe him $54 million this season, minus any offsets. So what that means is that another team today, if they pay Tua, would actually have to give that money back to Miami. It's called offset language in the contract. So that's why a few years ago we saw Russ get traded and play for vet minimum at this point, or get cut and play for vet minimum. At this point, Tua, wherever he goes, can sign literally for vet minimum because it makes no difference to his pocket. It can create opportunities for him to go play essentially for free for somebody. Because it makes no difference to his bottom line. He's getting his money either way. But Caroline, he hits the open market now, in an open market where we've got Kyler Murray and Malik Willis and Kirk Cousins as your top quarterbacks right now. We can add Tua for whatever value he has to some teams to that list.
And I don't think that this should come as a massive shock or surprise to anyone. The Dolphins knew that Tua was not their future. Proven by the fact that they put in a 7th-round Quinn Ewers in to finish out the season last year. Proven by the fact that they moved on from their general manager and their head coach. It is a new era in Miami, and they are totally and completely ripping this thing down to the studs. They're moving on from Tua and entering into cap hell in order to do it, because they said, look, this guy's not our future, so we have to move on from him and make our next decision for our next quarterback of the future. We also learned that the Dolphins are trading Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's heading to the Jets for the Chargers 2026 7th-round pick. So they are ripping this thing down to the studs. They are absolutely going all in on the suck in 2026. They're moving on into a new GM and a new head coach, a new era in Miami. Although it hurts, although it stings, and although the money is unprecedented, I think it's the right move in Miami.
We agree 1,000%. We'll keep you updated on all the breaking news for a wild day in the NFL. But coming up, we're going to take a look in our crystal balls and figure out what to make of the Western Conference in the NBA. How do the top teams actually make it to the finals? We'll answer that question next.
What is the process as a receiver winning against zone coverage? Is it more settling down? Is it finding holes? Walk us through the process.
Yeah,
there.
so like the first thing that you want to look at is those safeties, right? So then you just look at your triangle. So I go safeties to nickel backer or nickel or backer, and then out to that corner. Is it gonna be cover 2? Are they showing 3 right now because they're gonna roll into 2? Are those safeties low? Just seeing those subtleties are really what makes you a really good zone player.
You don't want to get ahead of yourself when you think that he's going to come and be a game changer. He's more of a managerial type that can operate at a high level. I've made the comparison to Jared Goff in terms of how he'll play the game within the right system. The best thing that has happened to Fernando Mendoza is Clint Kubiak bringing his system to the Las Vegas Raiders. And when surrounded by the right talent, he can have a lot of success.
We got the announcement that Floyd Mayweather will be taking on Manny Pacquiao in a rematch. People will watch, people will tune in, and I'm curious to see how it looks. I think they're going to be around the same skill level if they both come in healthy. And I really think it is significant that Floyd Mayweather is putting the O on the line.
100%. How do you make the competitive balance the most even? I think Manny and Floyd at this stages in their life, that makes it fair and exciting. So I'm in on Mayweather Pacquiao too.
Little Saban for us, because everybody loves Saban. So, give us your thoughts.
I knew that you were going to bring me in here and have me do Nick Saban for him.
Have you done Saban for Saban?
No, but I met him.
Okay.
And he didn't know that it was me. And he shook my hand, and I said, Coach, Joey Molinaro, so good to finally meet you, as if he would know who I was. And he just looked at me and goes, yeah, well, all right. Walked away.
Oh, it is time to peer deep into the crystal ball and figure out what is happening in the NBA. This is what we're going to do. All right, you see some of the teams there. Those are some of the best teams in the Western Conference. The premise is simple. will throw out the team, and then that team in our crystal ball has suddenly advanced to win the conference. They are playing in the NBA Finals. So that's the construct we're working here. They have made it to the finals. The question is, how did they get there? So we'll look into the crystal ball and we'll figure out how. Let's start with Oklahoma City. They get to the finals. You're looking in the crystal ball, Caroline. What happened that got them there?
Yeah, it doesn't take a whole lot of creativity to look into our crystal ball and see this Thunder team in the NBA Finals. It's when they're at full strength, they just do what they do. Like, that is as simple as I think it is. Injuries will be the one thing that could potentially derail this team on their path to their quest to winning back-to-back championships. But when they're at full strength, and even if they're not at 100% full strength, when Oklahoma City just does what they do, they are nearly perfect. They will pave a path to the NBA Finals.
I mean, look, this to me is just as simple as, I mean, if I'm looking easily, it's they just need to get healthy. I'm not even sure they need to do that. Like, all they just got to do is stay the course. Like, I want to say, I look in the crystal ball, they get healthy, and when they get healthy, they agitate everybody because they get there fairly easily. But I'm kind of starting to feel like the more we look at it, again, a reminder, they haven't been healthy, and they still have the top seed in the West. So I'm not sure they need anything, but getting healthy would make it easier. How about the next team, San Antonio? If you look in the crystal ball and figure out how San Antonio got to the NBA Finals, how did they do it?
Depth. It's not just Wemby, although Wemby is a massive part of that. When you have a certified superstar that can take over any game on any given night, that does feel like one big piece of this NBA Finals or championship formula that we've seen in the NBA. And Wemby fills that 1,000% tenfold. But it's not just about Wemby. I think that's what makes this team absolutely terrifying, is that it can be a Stephon Castle, a De'Aaron Fox, and insert this guy here. The fact that we can see a 4 to 5 game stretch where there was a different leading scorer in any of those 4 to 5 games. Like, it's relying on their depth. It's relying on their bench and the way that they can beat you in so many different ways. Because when you do have a certified superstar, if you are a one-headed monster, it could be as simple as, we're not going to let this guy beat us. And so what makes those superstars is when an opposing team says, we're not going to let that guy beat you, and he does it anyway. But I don't know if you can do that on the path to an NBA Finals. Not in this West. But San Antonio doesn't have to. San Antonio is so incredibly deep. So if they rely on that, that can be enough to punch their ticket to the finals.
Same answer, very different place to get there, though. You went with depth. I just went with that, man. Wemby being Wemby is going to Wemby all day. In a 7-game series, I just keep thinking about how frustrated teams are going to get. Like, that's something we see every time with the Nuggets, who we'll get to in a minute. And it feels like over the course of a 7-game series, so often frustration, just when people realize that, man, I can't do anything about what Jokic is doing to me right now, over and over and over again. Frustration seems to hit in a 7-game series. Wemby just being able to take over. It'll be really interesting to see how teams adjust to him and how he adjusts to those adjustments over the course of a 7-game series, because that's the part that I'm just looking at right now. When he takes over is just so impossible. It takes so many different resources to try and slow him down. I don't know what works. Let's look at the Nuggets. All right, we'll go to Denver here. How about the Nuggets? When you look in the crystal ball, I'll say that to me, I just mentioned Joker. Like, when I look in the crystal ball, it's Joker just becomes Joker again. And all of a sudden, it's not like he isn't Joker. It's just like we don't pay attention to it until we get to the playoffs. So Jokic gets into the playoffs. He goes full Jokic mode. Jamal Murray can go out there and just be the best of Jamal Murray because he ain't worrying about anything else. And then we're reminded just how dynamic this team is. Like, we just sleep on the Nuggets because we don't pay a lot of attention to the Nuggets. But there's a very clear crystal path that gets them to the NBA Finals.
It's Batman and Robin doing Batman and Robin things. That's exactly what we're seeing right here on the screen. It's Jokic doing what he does, averaging a triple-double. You mentioned we don't give enough love to Denver. I would agree with that. And I also don't think that we give enough love to Nikola Jokic because we've just grown so accustomed and so used to Jokic dropping 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists on any given game that it's like, oh, well, he does what he does. So that gets old. That gets tiring. No. I don't want to get used to the greatness of Jokic. And we have seen that the greatness of Jokic is enough, not just for Denver to punch their ticket to the finals, but for Denver to win a championship. So it's Jokic doing Jokic things. It's Jamal Murray being the perfect complementary piece to him. It is those two. And of course, you want to get more production from the rest of your roster. And of course, it's finding a certain level of consistency. And of course, it's staying healthy. Those are all caveats, I think, to all of these teams coming out of the West. Those are asterisks that exist for Denver, of course, but I think for everyone else. But it's highlighted by Jokic and Jamal Murray. It's a Batman and Robin. It's a 1-2 punch. It's a, insert whatever dynamic duo euphemism you want to throw in there. But it is all about Jokic, and it is all about what Jamal Murray can also contribute in tandem with Jokic.
I think because we fall in love with shiny new things sometimes. OKC, San Antonio, we just sort of sleep on the greatness of the Nuggets. And I'm not going to do that. I think it's a pretty clear path for them. All right, how about this one? I got to get in the crystal ball. We're going to have to do some work on this one. The Lakers. All right, I figured this out. I've got it. Okay. Sorry, the world. I'm sorry to put this into knock on wood. So we get another COVID outbreak, and then everybody goes to a bubble, and they play the playoffs in a bubble, and we know that they do really well in the bubble. So I feel like the path to the Lakers is like either everybody else just politely declines the playoffs, which doesn't seem likely, or we have another global pandemic, and as a result, they're forced to play in a hotel somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's distracted by Magic City Wings, and suddenly, boom, the Lakers get themselves into the NBA Finals by playing in a bubble. I got it. It's all bubble.
Look, it's not in the realm of probability, but it's in the realm of possibility. We've seen it before. If we want to go back to the College World Series, college baseball nerd over here, in 2021, Vanderbilt got to the College World Series final because NC State, a bunch of their players tested positive for COVID. So they were without 13 players on their roster. So just because of that, Vanderbilt got to go to the College World Series final. So that's what I'm sensing here too. It's happened before. I've seen it before. Not going to say it hasn't happened. It couldn't happen again. I appreciate your creativity here. I really did have to do some mental gymnastics to really dig deep into my crystal ball. My crystal ball tells me the offense is the defense. The ceiling is the roof. That the Lakers just drop so many points that it doesn't matter that they can't stop a nosebleed. That the Lakers just win every single game 150 to 140. That Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves, their big three, they're just so unstoppable. And each of them can drop 30 plus on any given night that it doesn't matter that they can't play defense or don't play defense or won't play defense. Use whatever words you want to use. So that's what my crystal ball tells me. Now, again, that's not in the realm of probability. I'm not going to say it's not within the realm of possibility. Anything can happen.
Look, you're 1,000% right. I feel bad we didn't get to the Timberwolves. Minnesota, look, we love you. You just need Ant to clone himself, right? We need four versions of Ant. Julius Randle needs to have the biggest postseason of his career, and then Ant needs to clone himself. I think we got that one. We got that one completely figured out. We'll keep breaking down the crystal ball. We'll take a look. Yeah, sorry, Minnesota. We love you. I hope I'm drastically wrong. But we're never wrong if we talk to Jay Busbee. Jay going to join us next. We'll get Jay's thoughts on a wild weekend in golf and much more coming up next.
Criticism like that from a coach. In the moment, how are you feeling when that's happening and the film's on screen?
Yeah, man, I think it's you listen more to the message and not the tone of the message. I mean, I think it's actually better to get called out than to not, because it shows not only you're not worried about getting your feelings hurt. They're not worried about hurting my feelings. And that's something I love about our coach. He's not really worried about hurting your feelings. He's going to tell you, shoot it to you straight. And for me, I've always thrived under coaches that do that.
We are ranking the biggest robberies in MLS history. The players who looked at their team owners and said, thanks for the cash, and gave absolutely nothing in return. If your team is on this list, we are very, very sorry. Danielson, FC Dallas. His contract was for $879,000.
If you're watching this, look at his photo. He don't even look interested to be there in the photo.
With 10 appearances, he effectively got nearly $100,000 per game.
I'm sitting there watching Unreal, and they're talking about you in WWE at the Royal Rumble, just being thrown into the ring. You ever getting back in the ring for one of those opportunities again after that injury?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we got WrestleMania coming up, so You maybe see me in there, you maybe not. I'm just not trying to get beat up. But we'll see. We'll see. Like I got beat up too much times. I can't. My body can't take that anymore.
Little teaser from the one and only Nate Diaz, unfinished business. And then he expanded on that on Twitter and said, I'll see you soon. I'm coming.
What about Dustin? Dustin versus Nate. Big fight. That could be a co-main or a main for a big fight card.
One that we always wanted to see.
One that Dustin has said, that'll get me out of retirement. The UFC could use him more than ever. They need stars now.
You see it right there in front of you. Akshay Bhatia wins the Arnold Palmer Invitational. All three of Bhatia's PGA Tour victories have come in playoffs. Talk about drama. So we'll figure this out. All right. Jay Busbee joining us now, our golf expert, senior writer for Yahoo Sports. Barely takes a day off from hanging out with me, as Jay did a great job filling in for Caroline for a couple of days. So let's get into this. Put a bow on it. What did it mean for him to get that playoff win?
Yeah, Akshay Bhatia is about as wide as this pen here. He's a very, very slim fellow, but he's got room enough in there for plenty of spine because he played exceptionally well coming down the stretch, playing against Daniel Berger, who closed out. He was well back. He was, I think, 4 strokes back early in the round. He manages to pull himself back with a string of birdies, a string of putts. The guy was unconscious on the putting green without getting too deep into the stats. When you putt well, good things happen for you. He had an exceptional kind of career-making shot. He is just 24 years old. As you mentioned, he's won 3 times in the playoff. This is a guy who is set up really, really well for the future. He hasn't won one of the major tournaments yet, but he's absolutely trending that way. This kind of tournament, this kind of win, this kind of playoff pressure really sets him up well for the future.
Oh, just 24 years old. The older and older I get, the more and more I realize that people younger than me are doing way cooler things than I've ever done or ever could even dream of. But I do want to get into the Players' Championship coming up this week. Want to highlight some players, but before we get into that, where would you rank the Players' Championship in terms of all of the events on the PGA Tour?
Yeah, the Players' Championship is a weird sort of thing because without, again, going deep into the nuances of the golf world, the PGA Tour doesn't control the majors, the big tournaments you've heard of, the Masters, the U.S. Open. It's kind of like if the NFL controlled the regular season and then turned the playoffs over to another outside entity. So the PGA Tour has to have its one signature tournament, and that is the Players' Championship. It builds everything to this point in the season. It has the deepest field in golf, the best players. Everyone that you've heard of, with the exception of the guys that are playing on the LIV Golf Tour, guys like Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, they're all going to be here. And this is a tournament that really is set up to test the players to a degree that no other tournament on the tour does. It's going to be a lot of fun. It should be a lot of drama. It's got a great course layout. It's got some very cinematic holes, things that you've seen before plenty of times. It really is the jewel of the PGA Tour.
You mentioned Rory. He won this thing last year. What do you expect from him this year?
Well, he withdrew from the Arnold Palmer Invitational over the weekend with back spasms and muscle spasms. It's tough to get anything out of Rory. He didn't make a whole lot of commentary on it. The television commentary wasn't too in-depth. But you got to think about it this way. He's got the most crucial segment of his season still to come. And there was a little bit of complaining, as golfers love to complain. They complained about the greens at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. This may have been and probably was more of a precautionary measure than anything else. He may or may not be trying to defend his Players' Championship win, but he's certainly looking toward the Masters next month and the rest of the majors going forward. That's what he is gearing his career toward at this point. So he didn't see any need to stick around for the Arnold Palmer when there are much bigger fish to catch in the next few months.
Can't talk golf without talking about a certain guy named Scottie Scheffler. I don't know, heard of him? And his recent performances haven't been overly inspiring. His only win of the season so far came at the Amex against a weaker field. So when you look at Scottie Scheffler's recent outings, could that be as simple as it's just some early season rust that he's knocking off? Or is there a little bit more to be concerned about there?
Yeah, the thing with Scottie is he is so good. I mean, he literally statistically was in the Tiger and is in the Tiger Woods conversation in terms of career arcs. I mean, Scottie's rust is other players, I don't know, gold dust. I mean, he's an amazing player, best player in the world, one of the best players in history. But he has been struggling a little bit, and he's been griping a little bit. Cameras caught him slinging a golf ball into the water after he missed a putt over the weekend, and it's kind of like, come on, Scotty, it's okay. You're going to be just fine. I think he's going to get himself sorted out. Last year, he had the best scoring average on all 4 days of a tournament: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This year, he struggled on Thursdays. It's a little bit of a relative thing in terms of his fall. He had such a high peak that he kind of had to fall just a little bit. But I think we'll know a lot more about Scotty after this week and then heading into Augusta, seeing how he's playing. I wouldn't be worried at all. I think it's more just a case of no one could play at the immortal level that he was playing for so long there last year.
Yeah, but let's be honest, though, the immortal level is something that everybody just absolutely strives for and looks for in the superstars,
Yes.
right? Like, how important is it for golf overall that Scotty become that player again as fast as possible?
It's a great question. It's hugely important. Golf thrives on its personalities, and you need to have. And the knock on Scotty early on was that he was a great golfer with no personality. Now he's done some interviews in the last couple of years where he's exposed this kind of vulnerability that Tiger Woods never did. Tiger was just a battering ram. He would run you down on the course. He would step right over your body, and he'd keep on going and grab the trophy. Scotty does the same thing, but he does it with a little bit more humility during his press conferences. He admits that golf is not the most important thing in the world to him, and he's a fascinating kind of character in that way. And so the more that you have these interesting personalities, whether it's Tiger or Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer going back into the history of golf, the better golf is, because it's such a personal sport. You see these men and these women on the course. You see them. There's no helmets. There's no uniforms. That just are who they are. And so it is very important for a guy like Scotty Scheffler, for a guy like Rory McIlroy to continue to have that kind of personality and that presence right at the top of the leaderboard every Sunday.
Another name that always commands headlines and attention is Brooks Koepka. His first signature event since his live return. No, he's made a couple of smaller PGA outings, but this will be the biggest one since his return. What are you looking for from him and expecting from Brooks?
Yeah, Brooks is a fascinating case because he's a guy who treats all PGA Tour events, all non-major events, as basically like spring training, like preseason practice for him. He gears up for the majors and he does not give a crap about any of the other tournaments. This is a little bit different because he's gearing back up after his time in live, and he's trying to play at a level that will allow him to play in all the PGA Tour signature events, all their big events. And this is literally as close as you can get to a major. He's been kind of boom or bust at the Players Championship. He's had some success. He's had some really awful rounds, frankly. But I think that this is a moment that he wants to succeed. His game is trending in the right direction. I expect him to play well. I expect him to get a good reception from the crowds there at TPC Sawgrass.
What do you expect from Justin Thomas? Made his return from back surgery last weekend. Didn't go particularly well. So how long do you think it takes for him to get back up to speed?
Yeah, it'll be a while. I don't expect much. He said that it was humiliating being out there. He shot a pair of 79s, which is just a wretched couple of rounds there. And it was kind of frankly surprising that he would come back after 5 months off at such a tough golf course. I think that, again, he, like Rory and so many other players, has that first full week in April at Augusta in his sights. That's the tournament that he wants to be set up for. I wouldn't expect a whole lot out of him this week. I'd expect a little better than the dead last finish that he had last week when he was playing. But I think that he's not going to be grabbing any trophies, carding any low rounds just yet. I think he's still got too much more work to do.
Busbee, we've talked about the names that, and I will put myself in this category of golf casuals, will recognize,
Yes.
right? The JTs, the Brookses, the Scotty Schefflers, so on and so forth. What are some names, maybe some deeper cuts that golf casuals like me should keep an eye out for over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I'm going to give you a couple of names that are familiar, kind of in the casual adjacent range. The first of all is Hideki Matsuyama. He is the 2021 Masters winner, had that really magnificent Masters win. He played really well at the Players Championship a few years back, shot one of the few 63 opening rounds at a Players Championship. The problem was he did it in 2020, and that was the tournament that got cut right in half by COVID, and we never saw how that ended out. He's playing really, really well right now. He's kind of surged back to his 2021 peak. I think that he's going to be a guy to keep an eye on this weekend and then going forward. I think he could very well grab his second Masters green jacket here in a few weeks. And another guy, Ricky Fowler. This is a guy who had so much more attention for his uniform and for his outfit back in the 2010s than his game. He was a big, he wore just absolute blaze orange, hunter orange, popsicle orange throughout the early part of his career. He's settled down a little bit now. He hasn't won a major, but he has won a Players' Championship, and his putting has come back around. After a bit of a trough, he's starting to play better. This is going to be a familiar course for him, some good memories at TPC Sawgrass, and I think that he's a guy that you might want to keep an eye on as well this week.
How much of this event is really about golfers in this event versus golfers teeing up and getting ready for the Masters? Because we've mentioned the Masters a few times, and I don't want to downplay where we are, but it feels like everything is progress to get to the Masters.
This is the last big stop. This is like the last, if you're talking about summiting Everest, this is, base camp number 4. This is the last one where you want to be prepared. You want to have this, and it's not to take anything away from the players, but yes, golf is, once you make the turn into the new year, golf is always turning toward the Masters. And so, yes, the Players' Championship itself is an amazing event, but yeah, everyone does keep an eye on Augusta.
So, with that being said, the Players is not a major. There's been some discussion about whether or not the Players' Championship should be viewed as golf's 5th major. Where do you land on that? And do you think the Players' Championship could eventually be considered a major?
The problem is that the majors, it's a great question. The problem with the way that golf is set up is that it's all made up. The 4 majors were determined by Arnold Palmer and a journalist back in the 60s. They all came together and said, you know what, we're going to make these events the 4 majors. And it could have just as easily been several other events. The problem is that golf is so reliant on history that when you start making a change like that, you got to go back and say, all right, well, does everybody who won a Players beforehand become a major winner? Because that wrecks all of the records that have been established since then. I think that I'm fine with leaving it as a non-major. I think that the field is absolutely better than most majors because it's so deep. But yeah, I think that there's kind of a closed garden there around the 4 majors, and I'm fine just leaving it that way and leaving the Players as the best test that's not a major.
All right, Busby, you know that neither Caroline or I profess to be great golfers in general. How many balls do you think it would take us to hit the island green on 17? Let's just how many buckets of balls will it take us to hit the island green on 17?
All right, so, I think the question is this. Are you just trying to get to the island green, or are you actually trying to hit it over the water into the green? Because if you're just trying to get to the green, you can do like a couple of people have done, take out a putter and just work your way around and onto the green like that. You can probably do that in about 30 shots there. But if you're trying to hit it on, you're going to be racking up at $10 a bucket. You probably need to bring 3 figures worth of bills at least.
All right, Caroline's buying.
You're giving us too much credit.
Yeah, that's 100%. Yeah, there's going to be a stop.
I would take
like,
the over on 30, Busby.
Yeah, that's. We'll take the buckets, and then we'll see. Like, we'll pay for the buckets if we don't get it in time. But if we do get it in with any balls left, then you have to pay for the buckets. We've now figured out Yahoo Sports Daily's golf outing. This is 100%.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I would love to see what I would love to see is how deep, how many balls are in that water. I mean, they obviously dredge it, but there are so many because this is a public course. You can, if you exactly, if you can come up with the money for a greens fee, you can play this. Not this week, obviously, it's going to be a little busy this week. But if you have the greens fees, you can go and play this. And so, yeah, every single hack golfer who has ever thought of himself as being like a Tiger Woods type will absolutely get on that tee box and just suddenly realize just how far it is and just how difficult it is of a shot to make it that far. So yeah, all 3 of us, I think we would be rinsing a whole lot of buckets of balls.
But we would have fun. Nobody would have more fun doing it. You can follow him on social media at Jay Busbee.
True.
Obviously, stick with him all this week. He's going to have you caught up on everything you need to know. Jay, always appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Absolutely, my friends. Take care.
Got to find a reason to make Jay come back tomorrow. We're just doing this every single day. All right, coming up next, massive extension after a massive move. Already free agent frenzy has started. We'll get you caught up on some of the moves next.
Well, one of the things, too, that keeps coming up, I keep hearing, and it kept coming up in response to my story after the hearing and during the hearing, is, hey, why doesn't he just go pro? Imagine being a college kid and making $5 million plus.
It's pretty easy. It's just money, guys. It's guaranteed money. This is probably, for most of these individuals, the last time they can make this much money playing the sport.
How can I sit here in one breath and say the sport is broken when it looks like the audience is more pleased with the sport than ever?
It's not broke. It's just we've been drinking out of a fire hose for 3 years. But it can't just be pay them, kick them off the team, next guy, next team. I worry about these kids' long-term health and what they're going to do with their lives when they're 26 and 27, when they have no roots at any university.
James Rodriguez is reportedly joining Minnesota United. The main thing, as a fan of the league, I would just be excited to see him play. And then Minnesota against NYCFC, get to go see James. And what if that game is at Citi Field, bro? Queens is going to lose their mind.
It's going to go nuts. Astoria and Jackson Heights will be empty. There will be 3 Uruguayans, 4 Argentinians, and 6 Mexicans in all of Jackson Heights going, what the hell's going on? Where is everybody?
Admittedly, I'm a huge fan of Travis Hunter as a prospect. Do you have any sense of what his growth is going to be like, where he might be playing more and more, what his role is going to look like, especially on the offensive side?
The way he is, his personality, I think this injury in his rookie year is only going to just make him better. He was starting to really get going on offense, and we were starting to click. So who knows what the rep count looks like, but I know he's a special receiver when he gets the ball in his hands.
Only days after being, air quotes, hacked with his announcement on social media that he was leaving the Green Bay Packers, Rashawn Gary now is. The Packers are finalizing a deal to send Rashawn Gary to the Cowboys in exchange for what we now know is a 4th-round pick from Dallas in exchange for Rashawn Gary, a linebacker that is at this point 29 years old, defensive tackle, I should say, that is 29 years old with a cap hit this year of about $18 million. So a big move here for the Cowboys, who, according to multiple reports, Caroline, were in on the Maxx Crosby sweepstakes, just couldn't get Maxx Crosby. They continue to tinker with this defensive line post Micah Parsons.
Yeah, this isn't a kind of move that I believe sets the Cowboys over the edge. This isn't the kind of move that I think is a total and complete difference maker for the Cowboys defense, like I believe Maxx Crosby would have been and is for any team in the National Football League. But look, it's a cap dump for Green Bay. And for the Cowboys, you're giving up a 4th-round pick for a guy that can be effective. For a guy that also, let's not forget, Kenny Clark was part of the Micah Parsons trade. So now what you have is Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark reuniting from their Green Bay days. So they already have that chemistry. They already have that relationship there. Yeah, I don't have anything against this move. I don't think it's an overly sexy move. I don't think that this is the kind of move that Jerry Jones can say, okay, look, we did our thing. We upgraded our defense. We did all we needed to do. No. That Cowboys defense was so dreadful last season. They are far more than just a Rashawn Gary away from being done and calling the 2026 offseason, a done deal. I don't think the Cowboys will be done. But this is, hey, it's a move that the Cowboys aren't leveraging their future for, and is, I would say, an upgrade from where they were in 2025.
Yeah, Rashawn Gary has put up some sack numbers, by the way. I don't want to diminish Rashawn Gary. He's put up some sack numbers, and it is funny. Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark reuniting in Dallas. This is one of those interesting moments where obviously they got a lot in return for Micah Parsons, and they have used a lot of what they got in return to try and get several pieces that they believe can equal the same impact that one Micah Parsons had. I don't know that you'll ever get that, much like the Raiders may never truly replace the impact of Maxx Crosby, obviously. But when you have the money to spend and you have the capital that you get in return, you do have to figure out how to best use that. So I got to give them some credit there. So as you see there, basically the Packers sent 2 first-round picks, Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary, to Micah Parsons and a 4th-rounder. So obviously the trade lines continue to be open between Green Bay and Dallas, and both teams seem to be tweaking what they have to figure out what the best solution is for their respective defenses. Another big move that's already been made.
The Packers still win that trade, by the way.
You still give the advantage Packers?
100%. Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, 2 first rounders for Micah freaking Parsons. And I understand the injury derails things a little bit, makes you feel a little bit differently about it. Packers still win that deal 100%. I feel like the Cowboys continue to chase what they lost in trading Micah Parsons.
Yeah, you're not wrong, by the way. And obviously, they'll continue to chase that through the draft and through free agency, trying to find ways to replicate the impact numbers, not just the sack numbers, but the impact numbers. We also had a big move over the course of the weekend. The Rams made a big investment after making a big trade. So remember, the Rams went out and acquired Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs and then turned around and gave him a 4-year, $124 million extension that includes $100 million in guaranteed money, makes him the highest paid corner in the NFL. So he gets a trade and a deal all almost instantly. And the Rams tell you, it's funny, we have said many times the Rams are an F them picks sort of team. I will remind you, if you look back at the numbers in the last 10 years, no team in the NFL has actually drafted more players than the Los Angeles Rams. They F them picks with their first-round picks because they hit on every other pick in the draft. So they sent a first-round pick for the 9th time in 10 years out of the building. They get Trent McDuffie, but now they immediately reward that pick essentially by making him the highest-paid corner in the NFL.
I think this is a smart move. Like, I'm not always somebody that's going to say, oh, yeah, give all that money to a corner, invest all of that draft capital into a corner. But look, Trent McDuffie is viewed as one of the best corners in the National Football League. And I said it with the Raiders and Maxx Crosby, but you don't get better by moving on from good players or from not signing good players. I think this is a great move by the Rams to upgrade their secondary. I also think it's smart to get ahead of this kind of deal before Christian Gonzalez gets paid, before Devin Witherspoon gets paid. Because Devin Witherspoon, the Seahawks are going to exercise the 5th-year option on him, and then he is going to get the absolute freaking bag. Christian Gonzalez is also going to get the absolute freaking bag. So I think that probably the camps in both of those respective places are looking at the Rams thinking seriously, okay, now the price tag just went up exponentially for both of these two players. But I think smart on the Rams to upgrade wherever they possibly can, because we know Matthew Stafford returning next season, that the Rams are in a 1-year window, maybe 2 years at absolute max. So the Rams are investing in and pushing all of their chips into the middle into this upcoming season. Upgrade and continuity wherever you possibly can.
Yeah, look, the Rams are just playing by different rules because they nailed the draft picks they make and they nailed the trades that they make along the way too. Like I do think it's time to have the Rams in that Eagles-like conversation for a front office that does it better. Speaking of big money, Albert Breer reporting that the Colts offered Daniel Jones about a Sam Darnold deal. So about 3 years for $100.5 million. Jones' camp has countered with the deal that it reportedly is offering around $50 million per year. You and I talked about what would the expectation be, and I actually thought 3 years, $100 million kind of made sense because it's really 2 years, $50 million a year. He's not going to play much this first year coming off the leg and Achilles injury. He's like, the 3 year, $100.5 million range kind of makes sense to me. For him to counter at $50 million tells me, Caroline, that they understand that they think they have the Colts in a corner, and they think that they have an understanding of the quarterback market at a different level.
Well, Daniel Jones's camp knows that the Colts don't have another option. They don't have a first-round pick this year. They don't have a first-round pick next year. The free agency quarterback class is lackluster at absolute best. Malik Willis, we don't even know if Malik Willis is a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he is the belle of the ball and is going to get absolutely paid this offseason because the quarterback free agent class and the quarterback market is so lacking and the need is exponential. But my thing that I would say to the Colts is, you sure about that? You sure about paying Daniel Jones $50 million? Because we have a much larger sample size of Daniel Jones looking more like a backup in the NFL than we do him looking like a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, look, what Daniel Jones did that last season was wildly impressive. It really, obviously, clearly, now that we're talking about Daniel Jones getting paid $50 million a year, it changed all of our perceptions of who he is and what he can offer any given franchise in the NFL. I don't want to ignore that. But I also cannot ignore all of those years with the New York Giants that we were all looking around thinking, this guy freaking stinks. The people that Daniel Jones got fired. The butt of every joke that Daniel Jones was. The fact that Daniel Jones became synonymous with below average quarterbacking in the NFL. I can't ignore that either. So while the Colts have backed themselves into a corner and they really don't have another option, and Daniel Jones's camp is rightfully so taking advantage of that, I can't sleep at night thinking that Daniel Jones is worth $50 million. But welcome to the market in the NFL.
Well, especially on a team that right now they may miss out on Alec Pierce because they don't have the cap space and they don't know what their quarterback situation looks like. I mean, the Colts don't have a lot of cap space right now today. According to Over the Cap, they're actually over it. They'll have to maneuver some things to make the money to even sign Daniel Jones. But to your point, not only do they not have a great option moving forward, I believe that they are sort of near the end of the runway for Chris Ballard, their GM, and maybe even for Shane Steichen, their head coach. So suddenly if you have a coach and GM that realize, hey, we can't just roll the dice. Like right now, if you survey the landscape to try and figure out who the best quarterbacks available are, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Tua Tagovailoa. Like I wouldn't rather have any of those guys than Daniel Jones. So like the list of names that are available are wretched for the Colts at this point. So you don't have a name available. You don't have an easy solution. I don't like any of that. So it's really interesting to see where they end up with, because $50 million is a lot of money. The middle point, the franchise tag is about $46 million on this. So they're asking for more than the tag. I'll be curious to see how this looks over the course of the next couple of days. One other piece of news out there, by the way, that we got that I think will interest Kansas City Chiefs fans. Diana Rossini indicating that Kelce is leaning towards returning for a 14th season, and the Chiefs, quote, remain very much in the mix to re-sign him. Like, the verbiage on that was a little like, what we think he's going to sign somewhere else, like very much in the mix. I can't imagine Kelce plays somewhere else, right? Like, to me, it's just one of those, they're giving him the time, and then when he figures out if he wants to play, they'll let him play in Kansas City. I remain very much in the mix. I don't know if she's implying other people are also in the mix. That would stun me.
I think that has to be what she means by that, right? Like, is Travis Kelce seriously considering taking a free agency tour of 2026? There's no way. No, to me, it is Chiefs or retirement. Those are his two options. At least that's how I've always viewed it. I don't see a world where Travis Kelce plays anywhere other than Kansas City. But I just would like to state for the record, I feel like Kansas City for a long time have kind of been comfortable just with riding Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, and Travis Kelce for a very long time. Last year was proof that you can't do that anymore. No, Travis Kelce is not that. He's not that guy, pal. He is not that guy anymore. So you can't expect, let's just say if Travis Kelce does come back, making the assumption that he will be playing for the Kansas City Chiefs, he's going to be 36, turning 37 in the middle of the season. So I don't think that anyone should be coming into this year expecting any sort of crazy fireworks from Travis Kelce. Expect a 37-year-old Travis Kelce, because that's what he looked like this past season, far more than not, was a 36-year-old Travis Kelce. Put pieces around Patrick Mahomes. Invest in pass catchers, which I very much expect Kansas City to be active in the pass catching market and free agency. You know, Travis Kelce coming back would, I think, be more symbolic than it would be a total incomplete game changer. Now, that's not to say that Travis Kelce is totally ineffective, because that's not what I'm saying in the slightest. But you have to give Patrick Mahomes and this offense more than just Travis Kelce hoping that he looks like himself of the past and not what he is right now.
The only pushback I'd have is last year he finished 6th amongst tight ends in the entire NFL in catches, 4th amongst tight ends in receiving yards, and 3rd in the NFL in tight ends for yards after the catch, behind Tyler Warren at 2nd and ahead of Kyle Pitts, who's about to get paid. So I hear you.
And it still wasn't good enough.
Sure. But like I think there's two things are true at once. Kelce is not the Kelce that he's not Hall of Famer Travis Kelce right now. He's not come in and dominate the league. I still think that even a shell of Travis Kelce comes in, he's a top 5 tight end in the NFL. So certainly the Chiefs could use a top 5 tight end in the NFL if Kelce decides he wants to play. We'll be back right here tomorrow at 9 a.m. to continue breaking down all the chaos. Stick with Yahoo Sports Network all day for the breaking news. Thanks for watching Daily. Come back, see us tomorrow at 9 a.m.